She caught her husband and a young neighbor in the act in her own garden. She sprinkled itching powder on their underwear, then called the relatives to come and enjoy the spectacular show. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family story channel. Heavenly God, I place my beautiful family in your loving hands. Pour strength into every woman who listens today, women who carry families with silent courage, who love without limits, who endure without complaint. Cover them with health, dignity, peace, and protection. Let their hearts never feel heavy, their spirits never feel weak, and their lives always feel valued. Bless their homes with calm, their bodies with healing, and their souls with unbreakable hope. My family, these stories are written with respect, emotion, and truth, especially for the women who give this family its heartbeat. Your presence here matters. Your support gives life to this space we share together. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, comment. I am with Mr. Peter. The soil under Natalie Dunst's fingernails at dawn was the same rich black earth she had turned 18 years ago, when this garden was nothing but weeds and her marriage was nothing but promises. She knelt among the roses, blood-red majesty, her favorite variety, and remembered the day she planted the first bush. 26 years old, 6 months pregnant with Jasmine, while Thomas studied for his architectural licensing exam inside their tiny starter home. She had dug the hole herself, belly pressing against her thighs, sweat running down her back in the August heat. Thomas had brought her water and kissed her forehead, saying those words that became his anthem. "When I make it, baby, you'll never have to work this hard again." She had believed him. Now, at 44, Natalie surveyed her garden with practiced eyes that knew the difference between growth and decay. The roses had spread across the entire backyard, climbing the fence, framing the stone patio she had designed, creating the private sanctuary she photographed for her event planning portfolio. Thomas's clients loved cocktail parties here. They would stand among the blooms with champagne glasses and tell Thomas how lucky he was. He would smile and agree, his hand resting on her back in that way men touched their possessions. "You're up early." Natalie didn't startle. She had heard Thomas's footsteps on the patio stones. She always heard him, even after all these years. "Couldn't sleep," she said, not turning around. Her pruning shears made clean cuts through spent blooms. "Too excited about tonight, I guess." Their 18th wedding anniversary. Reservations at Marcello's, where he had proposed. The same restaurant where she had worked as a hostess to help pay for his graduate degree, standing on her feet for 10-hour shifts while he attended lectures about sustainable design. Thomas moved closer. She smelled his cologne, the expensive brand she bought him every Christmas. He had already showered, which was unusual for 6 in the morning. His hair was still damp. "Natalie, about tonight, the reservation is for 7, she interrupted, snipping another dead bloom. "I know you have the Ashworth meeting, but you should be done by 5. That gives you plenty of time." A pause, the hesitation that meant he was recalculating. "Right, of course. 7 is perfect." Natalie finally turned to look at her husband. Thomas Wignall at 46 was more handsome than at 28. Success had given him confidence that showed in his posture, his tailored suits, the easy way he commanded a room. His architecture firm, Wignall and Bellamy Design, had its name on half the new buildings downtown. The press called him a visionary. She had called him that too once, back when it meant staying up until 3 in the morning helping him build scale models. Back when it meant typing his proposals while nursing their infant daughter because they couldn't afford childcare and a laptop. "You look tired," Thomas said, stepping closer. "Working too hard on the Castellano wedding? Someone has to make sure the details are perfect." She stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "Mrs. Castellano is paying me $40,000. That buys perfection. You don't have to work this hard, you know." His hand reached for her waist. "The firm is doing well. You could scale back." Enjoy yourself more. There it was, that suggestion wrapped in concern. He had been making it more frequently over the past year. Scale back. Relax. Let him provide. As if her event planning business was a hobby rather than a company she had built from nothing. I like working, Natalie said, stepping away to gather her tools. Besides, you know I get bored easily. You could travel more. Visit Jasmine in Boston. Take that Paris trip you always talked about. Natalie carefully placed her pruning shears in their case. Jasmine is busy with medical school, and Paris will still be there next year. What she didn't say, you promised me Paris 10 years ago, and then 8 years ago, and then 5 years ago. Every time she mentioned it, Thomas would agree enthusiastically, and then the firm would need him for a critical project. She would be the understanding wife who said, of course, work comes first. She had stopped mentioning Paris 3 years ago. Thomas's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and Natalie watched his face, the micro-expression that flickered before he could control it. Anticipation, excitement, something that made his eyes brighten before he remembered she was watching. He silenced the phone without reading the message. No rest for the wicked, he said, with that charming smile that had won clients and her heart. I should get to the office early. The Ashworth presentation needs final revisions. Of course. Natalie picked up her gardening basket. I'll see you tonight. 7 sharp. He kissed her cheek, a brief, distracted press of lips that felt more like punctuation than affection. Then he was gone, his car pulling out before she had finished rinsing soil from her hands at the garden hose. Natalie stood in her garden, water running over her fingers, and acknowledged the truth she had been avoiding for months. Something was wrong. Not the dramatic wrong of sudden crisis, but the insidious wrong of slow erosion. The way Thomas's eyes slid away when she asked about his day, the way he showered before she woke up rather than after his morning run, the way he kept his phone face down on every surface, the way he suggested she travel more. She turned off the hose and went inside. The house she had decorated with care, cream sofas and family photos in silver frames, marble counters and professional-grade appliances Thomas loved when entertaining clients. Everything was beautiful. Everything was perfect. Everything was a lie she had been telling herself. In the kitchen, Natalie made coffee in the French press Thomas preferred. While it steeped, she checked her schedule, confirmed wedding details, responded to emails. Her business had grown steadily over the years, built on referrals and reputation. She was good at what she did. She created experiences people remembered, moments that felt like magic, even though she knew exactly how the tricks worked. Thomas's phone sat on the kitchen counter. He had forgotten it, or left it. Natalie Dunst was not the kind of woman who went through her husband's phone. She believed in trust, in privacy, in the fundamental respect that sustained a marriage through 18 years of mortgage payments and sick children and career pressures and all the mundane erosions that could wear away at love. But she also believed in patterns, and the pattern had changed. She picked up the phone. The screen lit up, showing the lock screen, a photo of the 3 of them from Jasmine's high school graduation 4 years ago. Thomas hadn't updated it since. A notification banner appeared at the top. Emma Connolly, can't wait for next week when she's gone. The message preview disappeared after 3 seconds. Emma Connolly. Natalie knew exactly who that was. Their neighbor, 26 years old, graphic designer, pretty in that effortless way young women were pretty before the world taught them otherwise. Emma, who had moved in 6 months ago and charmed everyone with friendly waves and home-baked cookies. Emma, who borrowed sugar and asked Natalie for career advice and complimented Thomas's firm every time she saw one of his buildings in the newspaper. Emma, whose red Honda was often parked in her driveway during the day because she worked from home. Emma, who lived 3 houses down. Natalie set the phone back on the counter exactly as Thomas had left it. Face down, screen dark, innocent. Her hands were steady. That surprised her. She had expected trembling, tears, the dramatic collapse that came with discovering betrayal. Instead, she felt cold, precise, like she was planning an event where every detail mattered and there was no room for error. When she's gone, next week, the Denver conference, 3 days. She had been debating whether to attend, but Thomas had been so supportive when she mentioned it. Enthusiastic even, insisting she deserved the break, that she worked too hard, that he would be fine alone. Of course he would be fine alone. He wouldn't be alone at all. Natalie made herself drink her coffee, eat breakfast, shower, dress in her navy blue suit. Apply makeup with the same care she always did: foundation, concealer, mascara, lipstick in a shade called Fearless Red. She looked at herself in the mirror and saw a woman who had built a man's empire with her own hands. A woman who had sacrificed her 20s and 30s to support someone else's dream while calling it partnership. A woman who was not going to cry, not yet. Not until she knew everything. She picked up her phone and called the conference organizers. "Yes, I'd like to confirm my registration for next week's event in Denver," she said, voice perfectly pleasant. "Natalie Dunst. Yes, I'll need the full 3-day pass." When she hung up, she texted Thomas, "Confirmed Denver. You were right. I need this break. Thank you for encouraging me to go." His response came within seconds. "That's great, baby. You deserve it. Have an amazing time." Baby. He called her baby when he was lying, when he was guilty, when he was trying too hard to sound normal. Natalie looked at her roses through the kitchen window. Blood-red majesty, blooming in the garden she had planted with her own hands, in the home she had helped buy with her own money, while building her husband's dream with her own sacrifice. She had given Thomas Wignall everything. Now she was going to take it all back. But first, she needed to see it with her own eyes. She needed proof. She needed to know exactly what she was dealing with before she made her move. Because Natalie Dunst had learned something from 18 years of planning events. The best parties weren't thrown together in moments of impulse. They were carefully orchestrated, with every detail considered, every contingency planned for, every guest positioned exactly where they needed to be for maximum impact. And Thomas Wignall, successful architect, beloved husband, father of her child, was about to attend a party he would never forget. She just had to make sure everyone who mattered was there to see the show. Chapter 2. The friend who sees Rochelle Bennett's house smelled like cinnamon rolls and coffee when Natalie arrived with her suitcase on Monday morning. Her best friend since college took one look at Natalie's face and knew, "You're not going to Denver." "No." Natalie set her bag down in the foyer. "I'm going to watch my husband destroy himself." They had been friends for 22 years. Rochelle knew Natalie's tells, the set of her jaw when she was planning something, the cold clarity in her eyes when she had made a decision that couldn't be unmade. She had seen that look twice before, when Natalie decided to put herself through business school while pregnant, and when she decided to launch her event planning company with their last $2,000 in savings. Both times, people had told her she was crazy. Both times, she had proven them wrong. "How long have you known?" Rochelle asked, leading her to the kitchen. 2 days, but I've suspected for months." Natalie accepted the coffee mug, wrapping her hands around the warmth. "He's been different, distant, always on his phone, showering at odd times, suggesting I travel more." Classic cheater behavior. Rochelle's voice was bitter. She had been through this 5 years ago with her own husband, caught him in their bed with his secretary. The divorce had been ugly, expensive, and ultimately liberating. "Do you know who?" "Emma Connolly, our neighbor. The girl with the red car. The one who's always jogging past your house in those tiny shorts. That's the one." Natalie sipped her coffee. "She moved in 6 months ago, right around the time Thomas started acting strange." Rochelle's face hardened. "What's your plan?" "I need to see it. Not a text message, not suspicion. I need undeniable proof that will stand up in any court and any conversation." Natalie set down her mug. "Thomas thinks I'm in Denver for 3 days. He's going to use that time to be with her. I'm going to catch them together, and I'm going to make sure everyone who matters sees exactly what he is. You're going to destroy him. No. Natalie's smile was ice. I'm going to let him destroy himself. I'm just going to make sure there's an audience. Rochelle studied her friend. The Natalie she knew was kind, patient, understanding to a fault. The woman sitting in her kitchen was someone different, sharper, harder, forged in the fire of betrayal into something that could cut. What do you need from me? Surveillance. Your sister Denise lives on my street. I need her to watch Thomas's movements, when he's home, when Emma visits, when they leave together. Natalie pulled out her phone and showed Rochelle a banking app. I'm also tracking our joint account. He withdrew $600 in cash this morning. Cash means he's hiding something. Smart. Rochelle texted her sister immediately. Denise will help. She hates cheaters ever since her ex. They spent the morning planning. Denise would watch the house from her window with a clear view of both Thomas's driveway and Emma's. She would document everything, times, dates, license plates. Rochelle would help Natalie sort through financial records, looking for patterns of hidden spending. By noon, they had a system in place. By 2 in the afternoon, Denise called. Thomas's car just pulled into his driveway, she said, voice tight with anger. It's a Monday. He should be at work. Natalie checked the time, 2:15. Is he alone? So far. But wait, Emma's door just opened. She's walking toward your house. She's wearing a sundress. She's carrying a bottle of wine. Natalie closed her eyes, saw her husband opening the door, saw Emma stepping into her home, saw them moving through rooms she had decorated, sitting on furniture she had chosen, drinking wine in the middle of a workday while she was supposed to be 1,000 miles away. Keep watching, Natalie said. Her voice didn't shake. Tell me everything. 15 minutes later, Denise called back. The blinds are closed. His car is still there, so is hers. Natalie, I'm so sorry. Don't be sorry, just keep documenting. Natalie ended the call and looked at Rochelle. He took a personal day. Told his office he had a family emergency, probably. Used the time to be with her in my house. What are you going to do? Wait. Natalie stood and walked to Rochelle's window, looking out at nothing. He thinks he has 3 days of freedom. Let him use the first day however he wants. Tomorrow will be different. Different how? Tomorrow, I'm going to give him exactly what he wants. Natalie turned back to her friend. Privacy with Emma. All the time in the world. In my garden, behind my roses, where he thinks no one can see. Rochelle understood immediately. You're going to catch them in the act. I'm going to do better than that. Natalie's smile was sharp enough to draw blood. I'm going to make sure his mother catches them. His brother. The neighbors. Everyone he's ever pretended to be a good man in front of. I'm going to destroy his reputation in a single afternoon. How? Natalie pulled her phone out again and scrolled through her contacts until she found what she needed. Remember when I planned that surprise party for Thomas's mother's 70th birthday? The one where you coordinated 30 people showing up at exactly the right time? Exactly. Natalie's fingers flew across her screen. I'm very good at getting people where they need to be at precisely the right moment. Tomorrow, Thomas is going to learn just how good. They spent the rest of the day planning. Denise continued her surveillance, reporting back every hour. Thomas and Emma stayed in the house until 6 in the evening. When Emma finally left, she was laughing, her hair messy, her sundress wrinkled. Thomas walked her to the door and kissed her in full view of the street. Denise got a photo. That night, Natalie lay in Rochelle's guest room and stared at the ceiling. She thought about the woman she had been that morning, someone who still hoped she was wrong, who wanted to believe in the man she had married. That woman was gone now, burned away by the sight of Emma Connolly walking out of her home with her husband's kiss still on her lips. The woman who remained was someone new, someone harder, someone who understood that kindness was often mistaken for weakness, and that the biggest mistake a woman could make was letting a man believe she would accept betrayal quietly. Thomas had made that mistake. Tomorrow, he was going to pay for it. Natalie picked up her phone and made a list. She needed itching powder, the kind used in theater productions, strong enough to be maddening but safe enough to be legal. She needed to time everything perfectly. She needed to make sure Thomas felt safe, comfortable, confident enough to bring Emma into the garden in broad daylight. And she needed an audience that would never forget what they witnessed. By midnight, Natalie had her plan mapped out to the minute. She fell asleep with her phone alarm set for 6 in the morning, her mind clear, her purpose sharp as the pruning shears she used to keep her roses beautiful. Thomas thought he had gotten away with it. He thought Natalie was in Denver, oblivious and trusting, while he played house with a woman barely older than their daughter. He had forgotten something crucial about his wife. Natalie Dunst never left details to chance. She planned for every contingency, controlled every variable, anticipated every possible outcome, and tomorrow, the biggest event of Thomas Wignall's life was about to unfold exactly according to her design. Chapter 3. The Spectacular Reckoning. Tuesday morning arrived with clear skies and perfect weather. Natalie watched the forecast on her phone and smiled. Not a cloud. No chance of rain. Nothing to drive Thomas and Emma inside. Perfect. She was dressed by 7, wearing dark jeans and a black shirt that wouldn't show dirt. Rochelle had already left for work with instructions to keep her phone on vibrate. Denise was positioned at her window with a camera and a direct line to Natalie. At 8, Natalie drove to the pharmacy 3 towns over, where no one would recognize her. The clerk was young, bored, barely looked up when Natalie purchased 3 bottles of theatrical itching powder. "Drama production?" the girl asked, scanning the items. "Something like that," Natalie replied. By 9, she was parked 2 blocks from her own house, waiting. Her phone buzzed with updates from Denise. Thomas just left for the office. Normal time, normal routine. Good. He was establishing his alibi, showing his face at work so no one would question where he was later. At 10:30, Thomas is back. He just pulled in. He's carrying groceries. Natalie's jaw tightened. Groceries. He was preparing for a romantic afternoon in her house, with her kitchen, using her space to seduce another woman. At 11. "Emma just left her house. She's walking toward yours. She's wearing that yellow sundress again." Thomas opened the door before she even knocked. Natalie started her car. Time to move. "Denise, I need you to do something for me. Call Thomas's mother. Tell her you were walking past my house and you smelled something strange coming from the backyard, like gas. Tell her you're worried about a leak and you think someone should check on it. Tell her to come right away." "Natalie, are you sure? His mother is going to—" "That's exactly what I want. Make the call." While Denise called Margaret Wignall, Natalie made her own calls. To Thomas's brother Paul, saying the same thing. To Mrs. Henderson 3 doors down, the neighborhood gossip who had nothing better to do than spread information faster than wildfire. By 11:30, Natalie was parked in her own driveway. Her hands were steady as she unlocked her front door. She could hear them in the living room, Emma's laugh, high and careless. Thomas's voice, low and intimate, saying things Natalie couldn't make out but could imagine perfectly. She moved through her own house like a ghost, up the stairs, into her bedroom. Their clothes were already scattered on her floor. Emma's yellow sundress tossed over the chair Natalie's grandmother had given her. Thomas's shirt on the bed, his wedding ring on the nightstand. He had taken it off. That detail burned hotter than anything else. Not hidden, not tucked away, just casually removed and set aside like it meant nothing. Natalie picked up Emma's dress. The fabric was soft, expensive. She turned it inside out and began her work. The itching powder went into every seam, the inside of the collar, the waistband, the hem. She was meticulous, careful, thorough. Then Thomas's clothes, his shirt, his pants, his underwear. Every piece got the same treatment. She could still hear them downstairs. They were moving toward the back of the house now, toward the garden. Perfect. Natalie checked the time. 11:45. Margaret Wignall would arrive any minute. So would Paul. Mrs. Henderson was probably already positioning herself with her phone ready. Natalie slipped out the front door and moved around the side of the house. Through the fence gaps, she could see them. Thomas had spread a blanket under the rose bushes, her blood-red Majesty roses that she had planted with her own hands. Emma was laughing at something he said, her head thrown back, her hair catching the sunlight. Natalie sprinkled itching powder on the blanket they hadn't used yet, on the glasses Thomas had set out for wine, on the collar of his jacket draped over the patio chair. Then she walked back to her car and waited. Margaret Wignall's car pulled up at 11:58. She was a tall woman with Thomas's same sharp features and a spine made of steel. She had been widowed for 15 years and had never remarried, claiming once was enough. Denise met her on the sidewalk, gesturing toward the backyard with theatrical concern. "I'm probably overreacting, but I definitely smell something strange. I didn't want to go back there alone." "You did the right thing calling me." Margaret marched toward the gate. "Where is Natalie?" "Conference in Denver. Thomas is supposed to be at work." Margaret's face darkened. She knew her son's patterns, knew he took personal days without telling anyone. "His car is in the driveway." Paul Wignall pulled up next. Then Mrs. Henderson, power-walking with her phone already out. Natalie got out of her car and walked toward them. "Margaret? Paul? What's going on?" "Denise called about a gas leak," Margaret said. "Thomas's car is here, but he's not answering his phone." "Let me check the backyard," Natalie said, her voice perfectly concerned. She unlocked the gate and pushed it open. The itching would start in about 5 minutes. She had timed it carefully based on body heat and friction. But she didn't need to wait that long. What she saw was enough. Thomas and Emma were on the blanket. Not intimate yet, but close. Wine glasses in hand, his arm around her shoulders, her hand on his chest. Both of them laughing, completely unaware they had an audience growing behind the fence. "Thomas!" Natalie's voice cut across the garden like a blade. He jumped, spilled his wine, scrambled to his feet. "Natalie, I thought you were in Denver." She stepped fully into the garden. Behind her, Margaret and Paul and Mrs. Henderson and Denise filed through the gate, all of them seeing, all of them understanding. "Yes, that's what you thought." Emma went white. She tried to stand, but her dress caught on the rosebush. Thorns tore the fabric. She yanked it free and clutched it against herself. "Mom!" Thomas started, looking at Margaret. "This isn't... Don't you dare lie to me." Margaret's voice could have frozen fire. "Not when I can see exactly what this is." That's when the itching started. Thomas scratched his arm casually, then his neck, then his chest. Emma giggled nervously and scratched her side. Within 30 seconds, they were both clawing at themselves. "What the hell?" Thomas ripped his shirt open, scratching his chest so hard he left red marks. "What is this?" Emma was crying now, tearing at her arms, her legs, anywhere skin touched fabric. Her dress rode up as she scratched her thighs. "It burns! Oh God, it burns!" Natalie pulled out her phone and started recording. "You both look uncomfortable. Should I call a doctor?" "You did this!" Thomas shouted, but he was too busy scratching himself raw to be threatening. His back, his legs. He yanked his pants down, not caring who saw, desperate for relief. "You poisoned us." "Itching powder." Natalie's voice was calm, educational even. "Theatrical grade, completely harmless, just uncomfortable. It should wear off in an hour or so." Margaret stared at the scene, her son half-naked and scratching himself bloody, the neighbor girl crying and clawing at her own skin, the blanket under Natalie's roses, the wine glasses, the scattered clothes. She walked up to Thomas and slapped him. The crack echoed through the garden, birds scattered from the trees. Thomas's head snapped to the side. "You're just like your father," Margaret said, her voice shaking with rage. "I found him with another woman in our bed when you were 8 years old. I stayed because I was afraid, because I was weak, because I thought that's what women did." She turned to Natalie, tears streaming down her face. "Don't you dare be like me. Don't you dare forgive this." Mrs. Henderson's phone was up, recording everything. Paul stood frozen, staring at his brother with disgust. Emma ran for the gate, still scratching, sobbing, her dress hiked up and her dignity in shreds. Thomas tried one more time. "Natalie, please, can we talk about this privately?" "No." She looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing. Not love, not even hate, just cold, clear certainty. "You wanted privacy, Thomas. You had 6 months of it. Now you get publicity." She turned and walked toward the house. Behind her, she heard Margaret's voice. "Don't you dare follow her. Don't you dare speak to her. You have 30 seconds to get out of this garden before I call the police and report you for trespassing." "Mum, this is my house." "No, it's Natalie's house. The house she helped buy while you were in graduate school. The house she decorated while you were building your career. Her name is on the deed. Her money is in the walls. Get out." Natalie didn't watch him leave. She went inside, locked the door, and sent a single text to 5 people. Thomas's business partner David, his 3 biggest clients, and his sister who lived in California. The text contained 1 sentence and a video attachment. "I thought you should know who Thomas Wignall really is." By evening, the video had been viewed 47 times. By the next morning, it would be forwarded to half the city's architectural community. But that night, Natalie sat in Rochelle's guest room with a glass of wine and watched her phone light up with messages. Margaret calling to tell her she was done with her son. Paul asking what Natalie needed from him. Denise asking if she was okay. She was better than okay. She was free, or she would be once she finished what she'd started, because catching Thomas was just the opening act. The real show was about to begin. Chapter 4. The Counterattack. Thomas showed up at Rochelle's house Wednesday morning at 7. Natalie knew he would. She watched from the window as he pounded on the door, his face haggard, his shirt wrinkled like he had slept in it. Rochelle opened the door with her hand on her phone, ready to call the police. "You need to leave. I need to talk to my wife. Your wife doesn't want to talk to you." "Natalie!" Thomas shouted past Rochelle. "Please, I can explain." Natalie appeared at the top of the stairs. She had slept better than she had in months. No anxiety dreams, no waking up at 3 in the morning wondering if she was enough. She felt clear, powerful, in control. "You have 2 minutes," she said. Thomas pushed past Rochelle and stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at Natalie like she was salvation and judgment combined. It was a mistake, a horrible, stupid mistake. Emma meant nothing. She pursued me and I was weak and I'm so sorry. "Emma pursued you?" Natalie's voice was flat. "Yes, she was always finding excuses to come over, asking for my advice, wearing those clothes. So it's her fault." "No, I mean—" Thomas ran his hands through his hair. "I take full responsibility, but you have to understand, she made it easy." "How long?" "What?" "How long have you been sleeping with her, Thomas?" He hesitated. Fatal mistake. 6 months. But it's over now. I swear it's over. 6 months. Natalie descended the stairs slowly. "You've been betraying me for 6 months, lying to me, coming home to me after being with her, making love to me while thinking about her." "It wasn't like that. What was it like then? Describe it. Help me understand how you could touch me while betraying me." Thomas reached for her hands. She stepped back. "Don't. Natalie, I love you. I've always loved you. This was just what? A distraction? A midlife crisis? A reward you gave yourself for building a successful career on the foundation of my sacrifice? That's not fair." "Fair?" Natalie laughed, and the sound was sharp enough to cut. "You want to talk about fair? I worked 3 jobs to put you through graduate school. I networked and smiled and charmed your early clients when you were too young to close deals yourself. I gave up my own career ambitions to support yours. I raised our daughter while you were at the office late. I planned your events, decorated your space, made your house a home, and all I asked for in return was loyalty. You have my loyalty. I have nothing from you but lies. She walked past him toward the door. Get out. Natalie, please. Let's go to counseling. I'll do anything. You want to do something? She turned to face him. Sign the divorce papers when they arrive. Don't make this uglier than it already is. His face went white. Divorce? What did you think was going to happen? That I'd forgive you? Welcome you back? Pretend this never happened? We can work through this. No. The single word dropped like a stone. We can't, because I don't want to. You killed whatever love I had for you the day you took off your wedding ring to sleep with a woman younger than our daughter. I never stopped wearing... He cut himself off, realizing the admission. Your ring was on the nightstand, Thomas. I saw it. You took it off like our marriage was a coat you could hang up when it was inconvenient. He had nothing to say to that. My lawyer will be in touch, Natalie said. Don't contact me, don't come to this house, don't call, text, or show up at my office. If you do, I'll file for a restraining order. You're being cruel. No, I'm being clear, there's a difference. She opened the door. Leave. He left. Stumbled down the driveway like a man who had been struck. Natalie watched him go and felt nothing but relief. By Thursday, Thomas had hired Richard Chen, a divorce attorney known for aggressive tactics and expensive billable hours. Chen sent Natalie a letter demanding she accept a settlement of $150,000 and agree to a mutual non-disclosure agreement about the circumstances of the divorce. Natalie read the letter twice, then handed it to her own attorney. Elena Rodriguez was 53, fierce, and famous for reducing grown men to tears in depositions. She read Thomas's offer and laughed. He thinks you'll take this? He thinks I'm soft, forgiving, that I'll want to avoid conflict. Are you? I want everything he has. Natalie's voice didn't waver. The house, the assets, compensation for my contributions to his career, and damages for emotional distress. Elena smiled. Now, we're talking. Let me show you something. She pulled out a folder. Inside were financial records dating back 15 years. I had a forensic accountant review your joint accounts. Your husband has been moving money. Natalie leaned forward. Where? Offshore account. The Caymans. Roughly $180,000 transferred over the past 18 months in small increments to avoid detection. That's illegal in divorce proceedings. Very. If he had disclosed it, he could have argued it was legitimate tax planning. But hiding it? That's fraud. We can destroy him with this. Then let's destroy him. Elena started drafting. The counteroffer was brutal. 60% of the house value, half of all marital assets including the offshore account, compensation for Natalie's design work that Thomas had claimed as his own, and a public acknowledgement of adultery. He'll never agree to this, Elena said, but it gives us room to negotiate. I don't want to negotiate. Natalie, even in the best case, I don't want to negotiate, Natalie repeated. I want him to understand what it costs to betray me. Friday morning, Thomas received the counteroffer. By Friday afternoon, his lawyer had called Elena screaming about unreasonable demands and vindictive behavior. Elena put him on speaker so Natalie could listen. Your client is asking for things she has no legal right to. My client has video evidence of adultery, photographs of the affair, witness testimony from family members, and proof of your client's financial fraud. Would you like me to file this with the court publicly, or would you prefer to negotiate in good faith? Silence on the other end. That's what I thought, Elena said. You have until Monday to respond. After that, everything becomes public record. She hung up. Natalie felt something unfamiliar blooming in her chest. Not happiness exactly. Something sharper, more satisfying. Power. For the first time in 18 years, she held all the cards. Thomas had gambled everything on her being too weak, too kind, too understanding to fight back. He had bet wrong. And now, Natalie was going to teach him the most expensive lesson of his life. Never underestimate a woman who has been planning your downfall since the moment she discovered your betrayal. Chapter 5. The Empire Crumbles. The weekend brought the first real casualties of Thomas's choices. Saturday morning, Helena Ashworth called Thomas directly. Natalie knew because Margaret Wignall, who had officially switched sides and now reported Thomas's every move to Natalie, was having breakfast with Helena when the call came through. Margaret texted Natalie the summary. Helena dropped the Ashworth Center project, $2 million annually, said she can't be associated with a man who betrays his wife so publicly. Thomas begged. She hung up on him. Natalie read the message while having coffee on Rochelle's back patio. The morning sun was warm. Birds were singing. Somewhere in the city, Thomas was losing the biggest contract of his career. She sipped her coffee and felt nothing but satisfaction. By Sunday, 2 more clients had pulled their projects. Thomas's business partner, David Bellamy, called Natalie directly. I need to speak with you, David said. Not as Thomas's partner, as someone who's about to make a decision that affects both of us. They met at a coffee shop downtown. David looked tired, older than his 48 years. He ordered an espresso and got straight to business. The firm is hemorrhaging clients. Thomas's personal life has become a professional liability. He pulled out financial statements. We're down 30% in projected revenue. If this continues, we'll be insolvent by year's end. Why are you telling me this? Because I found something while reviewing our files. David slid a folder across the table. The Riverside Mall design, the Lakewood Community Center, the Brennan Tower lobby. Natalie opened the folder. Inside were architectural drawings, professional, polished, ready for presentation. She recognized them immediately. I sketched these, she said quietly. Years ago, I was playing with design concepts and showed them to Thomas. He submitted them as his own work, won awards for 2 of them. The Riverside Mall design was featured in Architectural Digest under his name. Natalie looked up sharply. You're sure? I found your original sketches in our archives, dated, signed, clearly yours. Thomas scanned them, refined them, and presented them as his original concepts. David leaned forward. Do you know what this means? That my husband is a thief. That you own the intellectual property rights to 3 of our firm's most celebrated projects. You could sue us, destroy the firm, take everything. Natalie studied David carefully. He was sweating despite the air conditioning. What do you want? A deal. I want to buy Thomas out, force him out of the partnership, rebrand the firm without his name, and I want you to consult for us. Officially, credited, compensated for your work. Why would I help you? Because the firm has 23 employees who did nothing wrong, because destroying the company hurts them more than it hurts Thomas at this point, and because... David pulled out another sheet of paper. I'm prepared to offer you 15% equity in the rebranded firm, plus retroactive payment for your 3 stolen designs. Total value, approximately $400,000. Natalie sat back. You're offering to make me a partner. I'm offering to correct an injustice. Thomas built his reputation on your work. The least I can do is give you a stake in the company you helped create. What does Thomas know about this? Nothing, and I'd like to keep it that way until the papers are signed. Natalie smiled. I'll have my lawyer review the offer. They shook hands. As David left, Natalie texted Elena, we need to add intellectual property theft to the divorce filing. I'm sending you documentation. Monday morning brought another blow. The Architectural Excellence Awards Committee contacted Thomas to inform him they were revoking his 2022 Innovation Award, the one he had won for the Riverside Mall design. Margaret called Natalie with the news. He's in his apartment screaming at his lawyer, blaming you for destroying his reputation. I didn't destroy anything, Natalie said calmly. I just stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. His lawyer is advising him to settle. Thomas is refusing. Let him refuse. Every day he drags this out, he loses more. Tuesday brought the social consequences. Their couple friends, the ones who had spent years having dinner parties at Thomas and Natalie's house, drinking wine in the garden, celebrating birthdays and promotions, chose sides. Every single one chose Natalie. The Johnsons, married 30 years, sent a card. We're with you. The Reyes family invited her to their daughter's graduation party with a note. Thomas is not welcome. You are family. Even the Pattersons, who had been Thomas's college friends first, called to tell Natalie they were disgusted by his behavior. Thomas found himself uninvited to the poker games he'd attended for a decade, cut out of the golf outings, removed from the group chat, social death by 1,000 cuts. Wednesday, Jasmine called. Natalie had been dreading this conversation. Their daughter had been in the middle of medical school exams when everything exploded. Natalie had sent her a brief email. Your father and I are divorcing. He had an affair. I'm fine. Focus on your studies. We'll talk when you're ready. Jasmine had needed 3 days to process before calling. Mom. Her voice was tight, controlled. Is it true? Yes. The video Mrs. Henderson posted online. You saw it? Everyone saw it. It's everywhere. Dad half naked in our garden with the neighbor. You standing there so calm while he scratched himself bloody. A pause. Did you really use itching powder? Theatrical grade. Completely harmless. Jasmine laughed. It was a broken, bitter sound. I can't decide if that's brilliant or terrifying. It can be both. I called Dad. He said you're being vindictive, that you won't even talk to him about reconciliation. Natalie's chest tightened. What do you think I should do? I think... Jasmine's voice cracked. I think he taught me what a man should be. Loyal, honest, someone who keeps his promises. And then he showed me he was none of those things. He lied to you for 6 months, Mom. 6 months of coming home and kissing you and pretending everything was fine while he was sleeping with someone else. Jasmine, I'm not finished. He lied to me too. Every time I called and asked how things were, he said perfect. Every time I asked about you, he said you were wonderful. And the whole time, he was destroying you behind your back. Honey, you don't have to choose sides. I already did. Jasmine's voice was steel. I choose you, always, because you're the parent who showed up, who sacrificed, who actually meant it when you promised to love and honor someone. Natalie felt tears for the first time since this started. Not tears of sadness, tears of pride. I love you so much. I love you too. And Mom, burn his world down. That night, Natalie sat with Elena and reviewed the complete picture of Thomas's destruction. Lost clients, 5 major contracts, totaling nearly $4 million in annual revenue. Lost partnerships. David was proceeding with the buyout at a fraction of market value. Lost awards, 2 revoked, 1 under review. Lost social standing, uninvited from every circle he'd once belonged to. Lost family. His mother wasn't speaking to him, his brother had told him to grow up, his daughter had blocked his number, and he still had the legal battle ahead, the divorce that would cost him everything he had left. Elena looked up from her notes. He's going to break soon. Chen called me today and said Thomas is having trouble sleeping, having anxiety attacks. He's losing weight. Good. Natalie. Elena's voice was careful. I need to know how far you're willing to go, because we can push harder, make demands that will leave him with nothing but debt and shame. or we can accept a reasonable settlement and let this end." "I want him to understand," Natalie said quietly. "I want him to know, bone deep, what it costs to betray someone who gave you everything. I want every morning for the rest of his life to start with the memory of what he threw away. I want him to see happy couples and remember what he destroyed. I want him to be alone and broke and completely aware that he did this to himself." Then we keep pushing. We keep pushing. Friday brought the final blow of the week. Emma Connolly's landlord, Rochelle's cousin as it turned out, discovered a clause in Emma's lease about maintaining appropriate standards of conduct in the building. The cousin called Rochelle, who called Natalie. "Emma's lease is up for renewal next week. I told my cousin about the affair. He's not renewing." Emma Connolly, who had helped destroy Natalie's marriage, was being evicted from the neighborhood. She would have to move back to Ohio with her parents, disgraced and unemployed after her graphic design clients dropped her for unprofessional behavior. Natalie felt no sympathy. She had learned something important over the past 2 weeks. Mercy was for people who deserved it. Thomas and Emma had earned only justice. And justice, Natalie was discovering, was something she was very good at delivering. Chapter 6. The Deepening Wound. The call came from a number Natalie didn't recognize. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Mrs. Wignall, this is Sarah Pettigrew. We've never met, but I need to talk to you about your husband." Natalie sat down slowly. "I'm listening." They met at a quiet restaurant on the edge of town. Sarah was 31, pretty, nervous. She ordered coffee and didn't touch it. "I had an affair with Thomas 3 years ago," Sarah said without preamble. "It lasted 4 months. He told me he was separated from you, showed me what looked like legal separation documents, said the divorce was just a matter of paperwork." Natalie's hands tightened on her own coffee cup. "What made you end it?" "I saw you two together at a restaurant. You were celebrating something. I found out later it was your 15th anniversary. You kissed him. He looked at you like you were his whole world." Sarah's voice broke. "I realized he'd been lying to me. When I confronted him, he admitted it, said he wasn't ready to leave you yet. I ended it that night." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because there's more." Sarah pulled a folder from her purse. "After we broke up, I started seeing a therapist. Worked through what happened. And in one session, I mentioned that I'd gotten pregnant during the affair." Natalie went very still. "I had a termination. Thomas said we couldn't have a baby yet, that it would complicate the divorce, that you would use it against him. He was so convincing, so I—" Sarah couldn't finish. "I'm sorry that happened to you. That's not why I'm here." Sarah opened the folder. Inside were medical records. "After everything, I wanted to understand how I'd gotten pregnant when we were careful. So I requested his medical records through a lawyer. Mrs. Wignall, your husband had a vasectomy when your daughter was 2 years old." The coffee cup in Natalie's hand trembled. "What? He couldn't have gotten me pregnant. It was impossible. Which means either I was pregnant before we met, which I wasn't, or I had a false positive, or—" Sarah looked at Natalie with anguished eyes. "Or he lied about the pregnancy to manipulate me into proving I would terminate if it were real. Like some kind of sick test." Natalie couldn't breathe. "He had a vasectomy. And based on the medical records, he never told you." The world tilted. Natalie remembered the years after Jasmine was born, how she had wanted more children, how Thomas had said maybe later, maybe when the firm was established, maybe when they were more financially secure, and then later became never, and she'd assumed it was her body failing, had gotten tested. The doctors found nothing wrong, because nothing was wrong with her. Thomas had made the decision for both of them, permanently, without her knowledge or consent. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked. "Did anyone else know?" "I don't think so. He hid it well. But Mrs. Wignall, there's one more thing." Sarah pulled out another document. "I found another woman, Lisa Monroe. She was involved with Thomas 5 years ago. Same pattern. He told her he was separated, manipulated her, ended it when it got complicated. How many? Natalie's voice was hollow. That I know of, 3, including Emma. But I suspect there were more. Your husband doesn't have affairs because he's weak or lonely. He hunts, he selects, he manipulates. He's not a man who made mistakes. He's a man who hurts people deliberately. Natalie stood. Her legs felt unsteady. Thank you for telling me. Are you going to be okay? No. Natalie's honesty surprised even herself. But I will be eventually. She drove back to Rochelle's house in a daze, let herself in, sat on the guest bed in the dark. The affairs were betrayal, the lies were cruelty. But this theft of her reproductive choices, this calculated decision to rob her of the family she wanted while letting her blame herself, this was evil. She had wanted more children, had cried in private when year after year passed without another pregnancy, had gone to specialists who found nothing wrong and suggested she just keep trying, that sometimes it took time. Thomas had known, had watched her cry, had held her when she was disappointed, had said comforting things about how Jasmine was enough, how they were blessed to have her, all while knowing he had made the choice for both of them years ago. Rochelle found her there an hour later. What happened? Natalie told her everything. The vasectomy, the pattern of affairs, the deliberate manipulation. When she finished, Rochelle's face was white with rage. He's not just a cheater, he's a predator. I need to tell Eleanor, this changes everything. This destroys everything. For him, I mean. Rochelle sat beside her friend. Are you going to be okay? I don't know. Natalie's voice was small, broken in a way it hadn't been even when she'd caught Thomas in the garden. The affairs I could understand. Men are weak. They make selfish choices. But this, he took away my right to choose. He let me think my body was broken. He stole years of my life where I could have had more children, either with him or with someone else if I'd known the truth. What do you want to do? Natalie looked at her friend. I want to tell everyone. I want the whole world to know what Thomas Wignell really is. Then let's tell them. Monday morning, Natalie called the journalist who had interviewed her before, the one who wrote about women sacrificing for their husbands' careers. I want to do a follow-up story about reproductive coercion, about men who make decisions about women's bodies without their knowledge or consent. The journalist was silent for a moment. Are you sure? This is going to be very public. I'm sure, and I want to use my real name. The article ran that Sunday, front page of the lifestyle section. The Secret Vasectomy, one woman's story of betrayal beyond infidelity. Natalie's photo, her name, every detail about Thomas's vasectomy, the affairs, the manipulation, the stolen designs, the hidden money. The journalist had verified everything, interviewed Sarah and Lisa, obtained medical records. It was devastating, complete, irrefutable. By Monday morning, it had gone viral online, thousands of shares, hundreds of comments from women sharing similar stories. The local news picked it up, then the regional news. Thomas called Natalie's phone 37 times in 2 hours. She blocked his number. He showed up at Rochelle's house. The police removed him. He tried to issue a public statement calling the article defamatory. His lawyer advised against it. Everything in the article was true and documented. By Wednesday, Thomas was done. His professional association received formal complaints. His last 2 clients left. David's buyout offer was now a third of what it had been. Margaret called Natalie Wednesday evening. He came to my house begging me to convince you to settle quietly. He's having panic attacks, not sleeping, losing weight. What did you tell him? I told him he should have thought about that before he betrayed 2 generations of women in this family. My husband did to me what Thomas did to you. I stayed quiet. I suffered in silence. I let him keep his reputation while I died inside. Margaret's voice was fierce. You're doing what I should have done 30 years ago. Don't you dare stop now. I won't. Good, burn it all down, Natalie, for both of us. That night, Natalie stood in Rochelle's backyard and looked at the stars. She thought about the woman she had been 3 weeks ago, someone who had believed in her marriage, who had trusted her husband, who had thought love was enough. That woman was dead, killed by betrayal and lies and cruelty masquerading as partnership. The woman who remained was someone Thomas Wignall had created through his own choices, harder, sharper, capable of looking at his destruction and feeling nothing but cold satisfaction. He had wanted her to be small, quiet, understanding, to accept his betrayal with grace and dignity. Instead, he had created a woman who understood her own power, who refused to be silenced, who would burn down everything he had built rather than let him keep what he had stolen. Thomas thought he was fighting a divorce. He was wrong. He was fighting a reckoning, and he was going to lose everything. Chapter 7. The Public Execution. The article hit the Sunday paper like a bomb. Natalie sat in Rochelle's kitchen at 6 in the morning, watching her phone explode with notifications. The journalist had done her job perfectly, every fact verified, every quote devastating, every detail calculated to expose Thomas Wignall for exactly what he was. The secret vasectomy, one woman's story of reproductive coercion and financial manipulation. Her photo, her name, Thomas's medical records proving the procedure he'd hidden, Sarah Pettigrew's testimony about the fake pregnancy manipulation, Lisa Monroe's statement about being lied to, bank records showing the offshore accounts, architectural drawings with Natalie's original signatures next to Thomas's submitted versions. It was comprehensive, irrefutable, deadly. By 8 a.m., Thomas had called her 43 times. She watched the numbers tick up on her blocked calls log and felt nothing. By 9 a.m., the article was trending nationally. Women were sharing it with comments like, "This happened to me," and "My ex did the same thing with my IUD." By 10 a.m., Thomas showed up at Rochelle's house. The police removed him after he tried to kick down the front door, screaming that Natalie had destroyed his life. "You destroyed your own life," he shouted as officers dragged him to their car. "I just made sure everyone knew about it." Natalie watched from the upstairs window, felt nothing but cold satisfaction. Monday morning brought the professional collapse. Thomas's architectural licensing board received 17 formal complaints. His professional association launched an ethics investigation. The 2 remaining clients pulled their contracts. David called Natalie directly. "The firm is done. We're filing for bankruptcy. I'm starting fresh without Thomas's name anywhere near it. My lawyer is drawing up the partnership buyout papers." "What's the offer?" $200,000. That's all that's left after debts. "Make it $250 and we have a deal." David laughed, bitter and tired. "You're ruthless." "I'm fair. Thomas stole 3 designs from me that won your firm over $5 million in contracts. $250 is generous." "Done. Papers will be ready Wednesday." Tuesday brought the award's revocation. The Architectural Excellence Committee contacted Thomas to inform him they were stripping his Innovation Award. The letter was formal, devastating, and copied to every major firm in the state. "Upon review of evidence provided by Mrs. Natalie Dunst, we have determined that the Riverside Mall design, for which Mr. Wignall received our 2022 Innovation Award, was based substantially on sketches created by Mrs. Dunst. This constitutes a violation of our ethical standards. The award is hereby revoked, and Mr. Wignall's name will be removed from all related materials." Margaret called Natalie with updates. "He's in his apartment screaming at his lawyer, blaming you for everything. The lawyer told him to accept whatever settlement you offer before you take more." "How does he look?" 20 pounds lighter, grey, hasn't shaved in a week. His hands shake. Margaret's voice was ice. "Good. Let him suffer like he made you suffer." Wednesday, Natalie signed David's buyout papers. $250,000 deposited directly into her account. She used it immediately. Down payment on a commercial property where she would open her event planning company's first standalone office. Thursday brought the invitation that would change everything. Ms. Dunst, this is Catherine Winters from the Alliance for Women's Economic Justice. We're hosting our annual fundraiser next Saturday, 500 attendees, local and regional press coverage. We'd like you to be our keynote speaker. Natalie had been expecting this call. What's the topic? Whatever you want it to be. Your story is helping women understand they're not alone. We want you to share it in your own words. I'll do it. But I'm not going to sanitize anything. I'm going to tell the truth about reproductive coercion, financial abuse, and what it takes to fight back. That's exactly what we need. Natalie spent the next week preparing, not a speech about her pain, but a blueprint for survival. She interviewed 20 women who had contacted her after the article, collected their stories, wove them into a narrative about systems designed to keep women small and what happened when women refused to stay there. Friday night, she practiced in Rochelle's living room. Elena and Grace listened, offered feedback, helped her refine the message. "This isn't about Thomas anymore," Grace said. "This is about every woman who's been told her body isn't hers to control, her choices aren't hers to make, her voice doesn't matter." Exactly. Saturday arrived cold and clear. The hotel ballroom was packed, every seat filled, women standing in the back, press cameras positioned throughout the room. Natalie wore navy, professional, strong. Hair pulled back to show the face of someone who had survived and intended to help others do the same. She walked onto the stage to applause that felt like thunder. "My name is Natalie Dunst," she began, "and I'm here to tell you something your mother probably never said. You don't owe anyone your silence." The room leaned forward. She didn't recap the garden scene, didn't describe the itching powder. Instead, she talked about the morning she found out about the vasectomy. The moment she realized her husband had stolen her reproductive choices and let her blame herself for years. "He made a decision about my body and hid it from me. Let me go to doctors who found nothing wrong because nothing was wrong with me. The failure was his, the deception was his, the cruelty was his." She talked about the other women, Sarah and Lisa, and the pattern of deliberate manipulation. This wasn't weakness. This wasn't mistakes. This was predation. And the reason I'm standing here telling you this is because predators rely on silence. They count on shame. They build their power on the assumption that we'll protect them by protecting ourselves. Women were crying, some nodding, others sitting frozen with recognition in their eyes. So I stopped protecting him. I chose myself. And everything that happened after, his lost career, his lost reputation, his lost family, those weren't my revenge. Those were his consequences. I just made sure he couldn't hide from them anymore. The applause started slowly, built. Within seconds, 500 women were on their feet. The ovation lasted 8 minutes. Afterward, women lined up. A young woman with a black eye hidden under makeup whispered, "I'm leaving tomorrow." "Your article gave me courage." An older woman handed Natalie a business card. "I'm a family law judge. I've been ruling on these cases for 30 years. This is my personal number. If you ever need anything, testimony, legal support, someone to tell your story to the Judiciary Committee, call me." A woman in her 50s grabbed Natalie's hands. "My husband had a vasectomy 20 years ago, never told me. I found out last month when I requested his medical records during our divorce. I thought I was the only one. Thank you for showing me I'm not." Natalie signed programs, hugged strangers, listened to stories that broke her heart and rebuilt it stronger. At the back of the room, she felt the energy shift. People were staring toward the entrance, phones coming out. Thomas had arrived. He looked destroyed, gaunt, grey, wearing a suit that hung on him like he'd lost 30 pounds, unshaven, eyes hollow. Security moved toward him, but Natalie raised her hand. "Let him speak." The room went silent. 500 people watching, dozens of phones recording. Thomas walked forward slowly, stopped 15 feet from the stage. "I read your article. I needed to say something. You have 2 minutes. I can't undo what I did, can't give back the choices I stole." His voice cracked. "But I can tell you that everything you said about me was true. I was a predator. I used your kindness against you, and I have to live with that forever." Natalie descended from the stage, walked toward him, stopped just out of reach. "Thomas, I spent weeks being angry. That anger got me through, but I'm done carrying it. I hope you find peace. I hope you become better, not for me, for yourself. Is there anything I can do?" "Yes. Sign the settlement papers Eleanor sent you. Stop dragging this out. Let me move on." "And then what?" "Then nothing. We stop. You live your life, I live mine, and we have nothing to do with each other ever again." She turned and walked away, left him standing alone in a room full of people who now knew exactly who he was. Outside, Natalie breathed cold air and felt lighter. Her phone buzzed. A text from a publisher she'd never heard of. "Saw your speech. We want to publish your story. Name your price." Another from a film producer. "Your story is exactly what Hollywood needs. Let's talk." Another from Margaret. "I watched the live stream. You were magnificent. Thomas left my house an hour ago. I told him not to come back until he's ready to face what he really is." That night, Thomas signed the settlement papers, 60% of the house value, half of all assets, payment for stolen designs, public acknowledgement of adultery, the offshore money, everything. Total $2.1 million. Elena called with the news. "It's done. He signed everything. Didn't even try to negotiate." "How did he look?" "Broken. His lawyer said he's barely functional." Natalie felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not pity, just completion. The war was over. She had won. And now the real work began, building something so powerful, so completely hers, that Thomas Wignall would become nothing but a footnote in the story of her life. Chapter 8. The Woman Who Never Blinked. 6 months after the settlement, Natalie stood in the empty commercial space that would become her company's first standalone office and felt pure possibility humming through her bones. 3,000 square feet of raw potential. Exposed brick she would keep, high ceilings she would accent with modern lighting, windows facing the street where passers-by would see success happening in real time. Her contractor walked through with estimates. "Total renovation, you're looking at $150. That's including the kitchen upgrade, new flooring, the custom built-ins you wanted." "Do it. I want to open in 3 months." While her business expanded, Thomas's imploded. His bankruptcy filing became public record. The document detailed debts of $400,000 against assets of less than $30,000. He had lost everything: the house, the savings, retirement accounts, the professional reputation that had taken 20 years to build. Natalie learned this from a newspaper article, not because she was tracking him. He had become irrelevant enough that she only encountered updates by accident. More interesting was what she was building. Her event planning business had tripled its revenue. She had just landed a contract with a tech company for their annual shareholder meeting, $200,000 for 3 days of coordinated perfection. The CEO was a woman who had read Natalie's story and specifically requested her. "I want someone who knows how to handle difficult men with grace and steel," the CEO had said during their meeting. "You orchestrated your ex-husband's public destruction while maintaining perfect composure. That's exactly the energy I need for a room full of investors who think women are too emotional for business." The shareholder meeting was next month. Natalie had 6 weeks to plan something flawless. But first, she had another matter to handle. Jasmine had called that morning, voice tight with anger. "Dad contacted me. Sent a long email about how he's changed, how therapy has helped him understand his narcissism, how he wants to rebuild our relationship." "What did you say?" "Nothing yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Mum, part of me wants to give him a chance. He's my father. But the other part remembers what he did to you and wants to tell him to disappear forever." Natalie sat down carefully. This was the conversation she'd been dreading. "Baby, this is your choice, not mine. Whatever you decide, I support you." "But what do you think I should do?" I think you should ask yourself what you want from a relationship with him, not what you think you should want, not what would make him happy, what would make you happy. Jasmine was quiet for a long moment. I don't know if he's capable of being the father I want. Then you have your answer. It feels cruel. He's alone. He's broke. He's struggling. He earned all of that through his own choices. You being kind to him won't undo the damage. It will just make you responsible for managing his emotions. Natalie's voice was gentle but firm. You're a doctor now. You know you can't save someone who won't save themselves. Jasmine exhaled slowly. You're right. I'm going to tell him I need space. Maybe in a few years, if he's actually done the work to change, we can try. But not now. I'm proud of you. After they hung up, Natalie sat with the weight of what she'd just said. She had won her war with Thomas, but the casualties would echo for years in ways she couldn't control. Jasmine's relationship with her father, the grandmother Emma Rose would never know, the family events where Thomas's absence would always be felt. She pushed the thought away. Some battles had no clean endings. You just had to accept the damage and keep moving. The commercial space renovation began the next week. Natalie visited the site daily, watching walls come down and new structures rise. The contractor's crew knew her by name, respected her input, understood that her vision was non-negotiable. You know what you want, the foreman said. Makes my job easier. I've spent enough time building other people's dreams. This one is mine. While the office took shape, Natalie planned the tech company's shareholder meeting with military precision. She scouted venues, tested caterers, designed an experience that would feel effortless while being ruthlessly controlled. The CEO checked in weekly. The board is already impressed with your proposals. One of them said hiring you was the smartest thing I've done all year. Tell him I said thank you. Her. And I will. 3 weeks before the meeting, Natalie received an unexpected call. Ms. Dunst, this is Amanda Chen from the Women's Business Association. We're hosting our annual awards dinner next month. We'd like to present you with our Courage in Leadership Award. Natalie paused. I'm honored, but I'm not sure I qualify. My business has only been standalone for 6 months. The award isn't just about business success. It's about leadership in the face of adversity. Your story has inspired hundreds of women to start their own companies, to leave bad marriages, to demand what they're worth. That's the kind of leadership we want to celebrate. She accepted. The awards dinner was black tie, 300 attendees, held at the city's most prestigious hotel. Natalie wore emerald green silk that cost more than her first car and made her look like she owned the world. She didn't mention Thomas in her acceptance speech, didn't reference the betrayal or the fight or any of it. Instead, she talked about the women who had reached out to her, the ones starting businesses at 50 after decades of being told they were too old, the ones leaving marriages at 30 because they refused to waste another day, the ones fighting for custody and fair settlements and the right to control their own lives. Your courage inspired mine, she told them. And together, we're building something that can't be destroyed by anyone's lies or betrayal or attempts to make us small. We're building ourselves, and that's the only empire that matters. The standing ovation lasted 6 minutes. Afterward, a woman approached her, mid-40s, elegant, holding a business card. I'm Dr. Linda Tran. I run a consulting firm that helps women negotiate executive compensation. I've been following your story. Would you be interested in joining my speaker series? $20,000 per event, expenses covered. Natalie took the card. I'm very interested. They exchanged numbers. By the end of the week, Natalie had commitments for 5 speaking events over the next 6 months. $100,000 in additional revenue for work she was already doing, telling her truth. The tech shareholder meeting arrived. Natalie and her team executed flawlessly. Check-in ran smoothly. The presentation technology worked perfectly. Meals were served hot and on time. The CEO's speech went off without a hitch. During the closing reception, one of the board members approached Natalie. "I've been in tech for 30 years. I've attended hundreds of these meetings. This was the best-run event I've ever seen. How did you learn to manage chaos this well?" Natalie smiled. "I spent 18 years married to a man who created chaos and expected me to manage it invisibly. I got very good at making difficult things look easy." "Impressive. Here's my card. My daughter is getting married next year. Budget is unlimited. She wants someone who can handle her mother-in-law who is—" He paused. "Challenging. I specialize in challenging." The wedding contract was worth $300,000. Natalie signed it the following week. Her office opened exactly 3 months after she'd started renovation. Modern, professional, beautiful. She hired 2 full-time coordinators and an administrative assistant. Her business card now read, "Natalie Dunst, founder and CEO, Dunst Events." No mention of Thomas. No ghost of the woman she used to be. Just her name and the company she had built with her own hands. The first client meeting in her new space was with a corporate executive planning a retirement party for her mentor. The woman looked around the office with approval. "I hired you because you refused to let a man destroy you. I'm retiring after 40 years in a male-dominated industry. I want someone who understands what that fight costs and why it matters." "I understand perfectly." That night, Natalie sat alone in her new office after everyone had gone home. The city lights spread out beyond her windows, her business cards stacked neatly on her desk, her name on the door. She had built this. Not Thomas, not anyone else, just her. The divorce settlement money had helped, but the real foundation was her reputation, her talent, her refusal to stay broken. Her phone buzzed. A text from Jasmine. "Kyle proposed. We're getting married next spring. Will you help me plan it?" Natalie smiled. "Of course, baby. Let's make it perfect." Another text. "And Mom, don't invite Dad. This is our day. Yours and mine and Kyle's. Nobody else gets to take that from us." Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "I wouldn't dream of it." She locked up her office and drove home to the townhouse she'd bought with settlement money. Her space, her rules, her life. Thomas was somewhere in the city working his junior position, living in his small apartment, facing his consequences alone. And Natalie was here, building an empire one flawless event at a time, proving that the best revenge wasn't destruction. It was becoming so successful that your enemy's existence stopped mattering entirely. Chapter 9. The Life She Chose. 14 months after the divorce, Natalie hired her 7th employee and realized she was no longer running a small business. She was running an operation that required real infrastructure. The office had expanded into the adjacent space, more coordinators, more planners, more administrative support. She was booking events 18 months in advance. Her lowest tier package started at $75,000. On a Tuesday morning, she interviewed a young woman fresh out of hospitality school. The girl was nervous, eager, reminded Natalie of herself at 25. "Why do you want to work here?" Natalie asked. "Because you built this from nothing. After everything that happened with your ex-husband, you could have disappeared. Instead, you became the most successful event planner in the state. I want to learn from someone who refuses to quit." Natalie hired her on the spot. The tech CEO who had hired her for the shareholder meeting called with another project. "We're launching a new product in 6 months. The unveiling needs to be spectacular. Budget is $500,000. Are you interested? Send me the details." While her business exploded, Natalie watched Thomas's continued decline from a distance. He had moved to a cheaper apartment across town, was working as a freelance draftsman for various small firms, none of which kept him longer than a few months. His LinkedIn profile, which she checked once out of morbid curiosity, showed a man scrambling for relevance in an industry that had moved on without him. She felt nothing about it. He was a stranger who used to be in her life. More interesting was what she was becoming. A publisher approached her through Eleanor. "We'd like to commission a book, not a memoir about your divorce, though that would sell. We want a practical guide for women rebuilding after betrayal, financial strategies, legal advice, emotional recovery, the kind of book that helps women turn devastation into power." The advance was $350,000. Natalie signed the contract and began writing, not about the itching powder or the garden or Thomas's specific betrayals, about the framework she'd used to rebuild, how to document abuse, how to hire the right lawyer, how to protect your assets, how to restart a career, how to co-parent with someone you can't trust. She interviewed 50 women for research, heard their stories, wove their wisdom into a manual for survival. The book took 6 months to write. She worked on it in the mornings before the office opened, treating it like a second job. Her editor pushed her to include more personal details about Thomas. "Readers want to know how you felt when you discovered the vasectomy. What went through your mind during the confrontation?" "No, this isn't about my pain. It's about their power. I'm giving them tools, not trauma." The editor backed down. In April, Jasmine's wedding planning began in earnest. Mother and daughter met every Sunday for brunch and planning sessions. They chose a venue, a botanical garden in bloom, selected a florist who understood Jasmine's vision of wild, natural beauty, found a caterer who could accommodate the dietary restrictions of Kyle's large extended family. During one planning session, Jasmine said, "Dad sent me another email, asking if he could at least attend the ceremony. He wouldn't need to be in photos or at the reception. Just wants to watch me get married." Natalie set down her coffee carefully. "What do you want?" "I don't want him there, but I feel guilty saying it, like I'm being cruel." "You're being honest. There's a difference. This is your wedding. The people who attend should be people you want celebrating with you, not people you feel obligated to include out of guilt." "When did you get so wise?" "When I stopped letting other people's feelings matter more than my own boundaries." Jasmine sent Thomas a response that afternoon. "I've thought carefully about your request. My answer is no. This wedding is about my future, not my past. I need you to respect that boundary." His reply was long, manipulative, full of self-pity. Jasmine deleted it without finishing and blocked his email. "How do you feel?" Natalie asked when Jasmine called to tell her. "Free, lighter, like I just put down something heavy I'd been carrying too long." "That's exactly what you did." The book, titled After the Ashes, A Woman's Guide to Rebuilding, was published in June. It debuted at number 12 on the bestseller list. By week 2, it was number 4. By week 6, number 1. Natalie did interviews with media outlets across the country, a morning show segment where she gave practical advice for documenting financial abuse, a podcast where she talked about the importance of having your own money, a magazine profile that featured her office, her business success, and her refusal to let betrayal define her future. Not once did she mention Thomas by name. He had become my ex-husband, or simply the man I divorced, anonymous, irrelevant. The book tour took her to 15 cities. In every one, women lined up for hours to have their copies signed. Some brought daughters, some brought mothers, some came alone, clutching the book like a lifeline. A woman in Seattle said, "Chapter 7, the one about protecting your credit, saved me. I froze everything before filing. He can't touch it now." A woman in Chicago said, "I used your lawyer checklist. Found out my husband has been hiding income for 3 years. I would never have known without your book." A woman in Dallas said, "My daughter is 10. I'm raising her to never need a man to save her. Your book is our guide." Natalie signed every book, listened to every story, realized her pain had become something bigger than herself, a blueprint for thousands of women finding their own way out. In September, a film production company optioned the book. Not her personal story, but the practical guide. They wanted to create a documentary series about women rebuilding after economic abuse. Using Natalie's frameworks as the foundation, The deal was worth 200,000 plus royalties. Jasmine's wedding arrived on a perfect October day. Clear skies, autumn leaves, temperature exactly 70 degrees. The botanical garden was in full bloom. 50 guests, intimate and perfect. Natalie walked her daughter down the aisle wearing champagne silk and carrying herself like the queen she'd become. She handed Jasmine to Kyle with a whispered blessing and watched her daughter marry a good man who treated her with the respect Thomas had never managed. During the mother-daughter dance, Jasmine said against Natalie's shoulder, "Thank you for showing me what I deserve, for teaching me that love should build you up, not tear you down, for being strong enough to leave when you had to. You made it easy. You were always worth fighting for." "So were you, Mom. I'm so glad you finally saw that." The wedding ended at midnight. Natalie drove home alone, tired in the best way. Her phone was full of messages from guests telling her it was the most beautiful wedding they'd ever attended. Her daughter was married to someone worthy of her. Her business was thriving. Her book was changing lives. And Thomas? Thomas wasn't even a thought anymore. He had become so completely irrelevant that even his absence didn't register. That night, Natalie sat in her garden under the stars and thought about trajectory. How 2 years ago she'd been kneeling in different soil, watering roses in a garden she shared with a man who betrayed her. Now she was here, in space that was entirely hers, surrounded by beauty she'd created with her own hands. The roses bloomed in the darkness, Phoenix rising in brilliant orange, Midnight Empress in purple so deep it looked black, Second Chance in whites that blushed pink at the edges, each one a testimony to survival, to choosing beauty after devastation, to refusing to let someone else's choices define her future. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. "I saw photos from Jasmine's wedding. She looked beautiful. I know I wasn't there. Just wanted to say, I'm glad she has you." Natalie read it once, deleted it, blocked the number. He didn't get to be part of this, didn't get to send blessings or well wishes or any piece of himself into the new life she was building. She poured herself wine and raised her glass to the sky, not to what she'd lost, but to what she'd found. Herself. Chapter 10. The Queen of Ashes. 3 years after the garden burned, Natalie Dunst stood in her office reviewing contracts that represented more money than Thomas had earned in his entire life career, and felt something close to contentment settle into her bones. Her business now had 9 employees and satellite offices in 2 additional cities. Last quarter's revenue had exceeded $2 million. This quarter was projected to hit 3. She had a waiting list of clients willing to pay premium rates for the privilege of working with her. The documentary series based on her book had just been nominated for an Emmy. The producers wanted her to appear at the awards ceremony. She'd already commissioned the dress, midnight blue silk that cost $8,000, and made her look like she owned the night. On a Thursday afternoon, her assistant buzzed, "Ms. Dunst, there's a woman here without an appointment. She says it's urgent. Her name is Emma Connolly." Natalie paused. She had not seen or heard from Emma in 3 years. The girl had moved back to Ohio after being evicted, had disappeared completely from Natalie's radar. "Send her in." Emma entered looking hollow, thinner, older than her 29 years. She sat without being invited, hands twisted in her lap. "I know I have no right to be here," Emma began, "but I needed to tell you something before I leave the state permanently." Natalie waited. "Thomas contacted me 6 months ago, wanted to reconnect, said he was different now, that therapy had changed him. I was lonely. I was stupid. I believed him." "Did you sleep with him?" "No, but I considered it, until I found out I wasn't the only woman he was contacting. He'd reached out to Sarah, to Lisa, to at least 3 other women I don't even know. Same lines, same promises, same manipulation." Natalie felt nothing, not anger, not even satisfaction, Just a cold confirmation of what she'd already known. Thomas would never change. Why are you telling me this? Because he's planning something, I don't know what. But he kept asking about you, where you lived, where your office was, if you were seeing anyone. He's obsessed with you, Mrs. Wignell, or Miss Dunst, whatever you go by now. Did you tell him anything? No, I blocked him immediately, but I thought you should know. After Emma left, Natalie called her security company, had cameras upgraded, installed a panic button in her office, informed her staff to never allow Thomas into the building under any circumstances. Then she called Elena. We need to file for a permanent restraining order. Thomas is contacting his former affair partners and asking about me. I want it on record that he's harassing me by proxy. I'll have the papers filed by tomorrow. The restraining order was granted within a week. Thomas was served at his apartment by a sheriff's deputy. The order was clear: no contact with Natalie, no coming within 500 feet of her home or office, no third-party communication attempts. He violated it 3 days later, a flower delivery to Natalie's office, 24 red roses with a card. I'm sorry will never be enough, but I am. Always. T. Natalie photographed the delivery, called Eleanor, filed a violation report. The sheriff's office issued a warrant. Thomas was arrested at his apartment that evening, spent 1 night in jail before being released on bail with a stern warning from the judge. Mr. Wignell, if you contact Ms. Dunst again in any way, you will be held in contempt. Do you understand? After that, silence. No more flowers, no more emails forwarded from third parties, no more attempts to insert himself into her life. He had finally learned. In November, Natalie received an invitation that surprised her. A national women's leadership conference wanted her as their keynote speaker. 3,000 attendees, the largest speaking engagement she'd ever been offered. The fee was $50,000. She accepted immediately. The conference was in March. Natalie spent 4 months preparing, not a recap of her story, but a vision for the future. What came after the burning? How to build when you'd lost everything. How to turn pain into power without letting it consume you. The day arrived. Natalie wore red, blood red, the color of survival and refusal. She walked onto the stage to applause that felt like thunder, 3,000 women on their feet before she'd said a word. I'm not going to tell you how I destroyed my ex-husband, she began. You can read about that online. Instead, I'm going to tell you what I built afterward, because that's the story that matters. She talked about her business, the clients who trusted her, the employees she mentored, the women who wrote to say her book had changed their lives. She talked about Jasmine's wedding, about watching her daughter marry someone who treated her with respect, about breaking the cycle of accepting less than you deserve. She talked about her granddaughter, born 6 months ago, Emma Rose Peterson, about holding that baby and knowing she was raising a generation that would never accept betrayal quietly. My ex-husband thought destroying our marriage would destroy me, Natalie said. He was wrong. It revealed me, showed me what I was capable of when I stopped making myself small, and what I'm capable of is extraordinary. The room erupted. So if you're in a marriage that's killing you, leave. If you're in a job that undervalues you, quit. If you're in any situation where someone's comfort matters more than your dignity, burn it down and build something better from the ashes. The standing ovation lasted 20 minutes. Security had to help some women who were crying too hard to stand safely. Backstage afterward, a venture capitalist approached. I manage $400 million in assets. I want to invest in women-owned businesses. I need consultants who understand power. Are you interested? The contract was worth $300,000 annually. A publisher offered a 3-book deal worth $2 million. A streaming service wanted to option her life story as a limited series. Natalie said yes to all of it. That night, flying home first class, she opened her laptop to an email from Thomas's lawyer. Ms. Dunst, I'm writing to inform you that Thomas Wignall has filed for bankruptcy. The court has appointed a trustee to manage his remaining assets. Your name appears on some old documents, but you have no legal liability for his debts. I wanted to give you advance notice that you may be contacted for clarification. Richard Chen. Natalie closed the laptop, ordered wine, looked out the window at clouds that glowed pink in the sunset. Thomas had lost everything: the career, the money, the family, the reputation, even the small apartment. Bankruptcy would take that too. She felt nothing about it. Not satisfaction, not pity, not even curiosity about what came next for him. He had become what he deserved to be, a footnote in her story, a cautionary tale, a man who had gambled everything on his wife being too weak to fight back and lost spectacularly when she proved him wrong. She landed at 9 p.m., drove to her townhouse, found Rochelle waiting with Thai food and wine. "Saw the speech online," Rochelle said. "You were incredible, terrifying. I'm pretty sure half those women would follow you into war." They ate on Natalie's back patio under string lights, talked about the conference, the offers, the future Natalie was building. "Do you ever think about him?" Rochelle asked. "Wonder how he's doing." "I found out today he filed for bankruptcy, working for scraps, about to be evicted. And nothing. I felt nothing. He's just a man who used to be in my life, like an old co-worker whose name I barely remember. That's cold. That's freedom." 6 months later, Jasmine gave birth. Emma Rose Peterson, 7 pounds 6 ounces, perfect in every way. Natalie held her granddaughter in the hospital and felt her heart break open in the best possible way. "She's named after you," Jasmine said. "Emma is your middle name. I wanted her to carry a piece of the strongest woman I know." Natalie cried. Happy tears, healing tears, the kind that had nothing to do with loss and everything to do with love. That night, alone in the hospital waiting room, her phone buzzed, a text from a blocked number that somehow got through. "Congratulations on your granddaughter. I hope she has your strength. T." Natalie stared at it for a long moment, then deleted it without responding, updated her block settings to prevent any future breaches. He didn't get to be part of this, didn't get to send congratulations or insert himself into the new life she was building. A year later, the documentary series won its Emmy. Natalie attended the ceremony in the midnight blue dress that cost $8,000 and sat in the audience as the producers thanked her for her courage in sharing her story. The film adaptation of her book premiered 6 months after that. Major release, critical acclaim. The actress who played her won awards for the performance. Natalie attended the premiere alone, walked the red carpet with her head high, answered questions from press about what it felt like to see her story on screen. One reporter asked about Thomas. "Have you heard from your ex-husband since the film was announced?" Natalie's response was calm and final. "Thomas Wignall is not part of my life, not part of my story anymore. Not someone I think about. He made his choices. I made mine. I'm only interested in the future I'm building, not the past I escaped." The clip went viral, 10 million views in 3 days. 5 years after the divorce, Natalie opened her 7th office. Her business was now worth 15 million. She employed 43 people across 6 states. Her client list included Fortune 500 companies, celebrities, politicians. She had written 3 books, all bestsellers, had spoken at conferences around the world, had built an empire that existed entirely on her own merit. On her 50th birthday, she threw herself a party in the garden she'd built at the house she'd bought with her own money. 200 guests, jazz band, 10,000 string lights turning her roses into something magical. Jasmine gave a speech that made Natalie cry. "My mother taught me that the strongest thing a woman can do isn't holding her family together. It's knowing when to let the broken pieces fall and building something better from what remains." Margaret Wignall, who now introduced herself as Natalie's mother, not Thomas's, raised her glass. I raised a son who became a monster, but I was blessed when he made the mistake of betraying this woman. She gave me the daughter I should have had from the beginning. The party lasted until 3 a.m. When the last guest left, Natalie sat alone in her garden and looked at the life she'd built. A business empire, a daughter who was a brilliant doctor, a granddaughter being raised to believe she could do anything, friends who celebrated her, a legacy that would outlive her. And somewhere in the city, Thomas Wignall existed, working some job, living some life, alone with consequences he'd earned. Natalie thought about him for the first time in months, not with hatred, not with satisfaction, just with the distant curiosity you might feel about a stranger who once crossed your path briefly before disappearing into irrelevance. He had taught her something valuable, that she was stronger than she'd ever known, that she could survive anything, that the only person worth fighting for was herself. For that lesson, painful as it was, she was almost grateful. Almost, but not quite grateful enough to forgive him. Not quite grateful enough to forget. Just grateful enough to move on completely, leaving him behind like a snake leaves shed skin. Something that was once part of her but served no purpose except to be outgrown. Natalie stood in her garden under stars that seemed close enough to touch. Raised her glass to the woman she'd become. The woman forged in betrayal's fire. The woman who had refused to die quietly. Thomas Wignall had wanted a wife who would make him comfortable, make him look good, make him successful while staying small enough not to threaten him. Instead, he'd created a queen who ruled her own empire and answered to absolutely no one. That mistake, his biggest and final one, was the greatest gift he'd ever given her. The gift of her own freedom. And Natalie Dunst, standing in a garden that bloomed only for her, wearing a smile that belonged to no one but herself, was finally, completely, gloriously free. The end.